Welcome to Xomega videos. In the previous videos, we learned how to build WPF search and details forms using Xomega Framework. In this video, I'll show you how to easily build the same forms in Silverlight. For the most part, we're going to reuse what we have built for our WPF application. However, due to some differences or limitations of Silverlight, we will have to do certain things differently, which I'll explain as we go. Let's start by adding a new Silverlight application project to our solution. We're going to call it adventureworks.client.silverlight. Click OK, and we're going to host it in a new web application that will create a new web project. If you recall, our WPF application was connecting directly to our WCF services, which could be hosted on any other server. This is somewhat problematic in Silverlight due to security limitations. The easiest solution is to host our WCF services in the same web application as the Silverlight itself. In order to reuse our existing services implementation, we will just reference our entities and services projects. Now let's add an employee service file into our project that has only a single line that references our existing implementation class. Now we have to update the web.config with a slightly different service model configuration. First off, Silverlight 3 doesn't support the NAT TCP binding that we originally used. The only binding it supports in version 3 is basic HTTP binding, which is what we're going to use for our endpoint. This creates a problem though, since basic HTTP binding doesn't support sessions, which means that we won't be able to create, update, and commit entities all in separate service calls. To work around it, Xomega Framework offers a special session instance behavior for Silverlight, which we'll declare in the service model configuration and use it for our endpoint. We also need to add the entity connection string into our web.config because the services our web project is hosting are using the entity data model and the entity framework. Another peculiarity of Silverlight is that it can only use asynchronous service methods, so we can't use our generated service contracts directly. Therefore, we'll just add a standard service reference. We'll click Go to Discover. We have the employee service, and we'll call it employee service ref. Let's click OK. This automatically generated the service contracts and the client configuration for us. We also need to add a reference to the Silverlight version of the Xomega framework. Now, in order to reuse our generated data objects, we will link them into the Silverlight project under a dedicated folder. So we also need to provide a custom employee state property that uses asynchronous service methods. Let's also link in our generated enumeration files, which are in adventureworks.services package. We'll just add them as a link. We also need to embed the enumerations.xml into our application. And then we will load it into the Xomega lookup cache during the application startup, like this. We are also going to handle all unhandled exceptions and service errors by displaying a message box. As a final preparation, let's update the application XAML by defining the label style, the operator style, control style, and since the triggers don't work for Silverlight styles, we need to use a special converter to show the required fields in bold. Now let's configure our Silverlight search page generator for the employee search page, and we'll set the output path and the page name and namespace and point it to our existing employee row object that we defined before. Let's run it and review the generated file. Let's include it in the project here. The generated XAML uses standard Silverlight controls that are automatically bound to Xomega data properties. The code behind invokes the read list operation asynchronously upon clicking the search button. In a similar manner, let's configure the Silverlight details page generator by pointing it to our employee object. Let's run the generator and include the generated page into our project. The generated employee details page is functionally equivalent to the corresponding WPF details form, but it's using the asynchronous service methods and other Silverlight specifics such as base class, page, and the navigation events. And it's calling the functions, the service methods asynchronously. To wire up our pages into the Silverlight application, let's customize our employee search page in a separate file. It will navigate to the employee details page for the selected employee upon clicking the details button. Finally, let's add a navigation frame to our main page and point it to the employee search page like this. So we're now ready to start our application by hitting F5. Our generated employee search page for Silverlight is functionally pretty much the same as the WPF one. It has the search criteria with selection of appropriate operators that enable the corresponding search criteria right next to it. Let's pick the state operator. We'll try to exclude a certain state. If you recall, our employee state property reads the list of states from the service call. So if we don't select any state, a validation error is shown if the state field is required, and it shows it next to the field. Let's pick Washington State and hit search. So we get a proper service error displayed since we didn't implement this operator in our service method. So let's select the operator is one of that we did implement, and it works like a charm. We can also filter by a list of zip codes by just separating them with a comma, like this. Let's find an employee with a last name Word and view her details. Let's hit the details button. And again, the Silverlight details form is functionally pretty much equivalent to the WPF form. This means that the labels for required fields are bold, and the same field level and page level validations are supported. So let's make some invalid inputs here. And we see the error messages in a standard Silverlight way. If we try to save it, we get the errors like this. And the page also keeps track of the modifications. So if we navigate away from it, it prompts us for unsaved changes. Again, with little to no coding on the client side and a straightforward implementation of our service methods, we have just built a flexible and rich web application for searching and editing employees. Mind you that Unlike other products that work primarily off of your database structure and hence can generate little more than a UI for browsing and editing your database tables, the UI forms that we generated is based on the service layer that we have designed, which may be quite different from the structure of your database. This concludes this series of videos on how to rapidly model and build end-to-end multi-tier .NET web or desktop applications from the Xomega object model using the powerful Xomega framework. To learn more about Xomega object modeling and code generation technologies, and to start using Xomega for your rapid application development, please visit the www.xomega.net. Thank you for watching.